What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, here to give you your 5 winners and your 5 losers for the 2018 NFL Draft, analyzing 5 winners, 5 losers from this draft. We're going to start off with the 5 winners, starting off with none other than the team that picked second overall, the New York Giants. And in my opinion, the New York Giants landed themselves a generational talent in Saquon Barkley. They got the best running back and the best player in this draft. And arguably, you could say that Saquon Barkley is not only the best running back in this draft, but could end up being the best running back in the league this year. That's how good this guy is. That's the skill set he possesses. There has not been a running back with this skill set since a long time, and really the best running back prospect since Adrian Peterson. So Saquon Barkley, you could think of him as like David Johnson with a little bit more quickness. This is a player that's going to elevate the Giants offense to another level and actually give the threat of the run that the Giants have not had in seasons. You add him to an offense with already Odell Beckham, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard. This is going to be a very dynamic offense, and Saquon can be that centerpiece and open up Odell down the field and allow Eli to have a couple more years on his career. Then you have Will Hernandez, a guard who is aggressive. He is a guy that's going to be a powerhouse in the run game. And you add him to this offensive line that's in desperate need of some interior help. Really good pick in the second round. Some people believe that he was a first-round pick. So Hernandez, you got Solder in free agency, and he not only helps protect Eli Manning, but again helps open up running lanes for a Saquon Barkley. Lorenzo Carter in the third round, one of my favorite linebacker edge prospects in the entire draft. Really versatile player. He's 6'6", but he also has the speed to play in coverage. He can go off the edge. A player that played in Georgia, a really good team with a lot of really good NFL caliber players. There was a ton of them drafted in this year's draft. Lorenzo Carter, no exception, 6'6", 250. A guy that I think could play inside or outside. He's going to play outside in this 3-4 Giants defense. And I think he's just going to provide some athleticism and some versatility to this defense that is desperately lacking at that position. Then you add B.J. Hill, the D-tackle from NC State, a guy that really is a powerhouse inside. He could move to 3-4 DN because the Giants are now switching their defense to 3-4. Their primary defense, their standard or base defense to 3-4, because obviously a majority of the NFL is played in nickel, but he can move inside in the nickel if need be, but can be a big run stopper in the 3-4 defensive end position. A player that definitely helps. He's 315, 6'4". He's a former running back that has a lot of versatility, bulked up to 310, just has a lot of athleticism in his game. Then you have in the 4th round Kyle Lauletta, quarterback who is really like, to me, a poor man's Jimmy Garoppolo, has a lot of good skills, really good kid off the field, has good leadership from Richmond, really good quality accuracy down the field. Not the biggest arm in the world, but in a good system with good guys around him, can definitely get it done and maybe could end up being a starter in this league. I think he has the work ethic to get there, but he's going to be able to sit behind Eli Manning. So I think this was a good value pick in the 4th round for a guy that was maybe considered to go in the 3rd. So overall, the Giants, and then they also picked R.J. McIntosh, D-tackle from Miami in round 5, who is another player that, of course, can just add to that defensive line depth. And the Giants, you know, they needed some defensive linemen. They needed some offensive linemen. They got a good mix in here. Plus, they got a young quarterback, and they got a stud running back in the 1st round. So the Giants, I really felt, had an awesome draft, and they're going to be able to put themselves in the conversation as a wild card playoff team just because of this draft with what they did in free agency. So the Giants are going to be a better team than I think people expect because of the things that they've done this offseason, and I definitely have them as a winner here. Then my next team, talking about another winner and another team that just did a ton in free agency, is the Chicago Bears. I mean, the Chicago Bears arguably are the biggest winner of this draft. They go in the 1st round. They get a guy that could be the defensive rookie in the year in his 1st season in Roquan Smith. This is a game-changing, defensive-changing linebacker. Roquan Smith is a middle linebacker at 6'1", 236. You can put him right beside Danny Trevathan. He can play in coverage. He can play. He's got the athleticism and the quicks to go sideline to match running backs. He is just going to be a leader for this defense that they need, and just one of the best players. Definitely the best player. Him or Tremaine Edmonds. I mean, both players are great, but they felt like Roquan maybe fit what they are looking for a little bit more. He's really good. He's just a playmaker on that second level of the Chicago defense. Then you have James Daniels, center out of Iowa. This allows you versatility. James Daniels was a guy that a lot of people felt was going to go in the first round. Instead, he goes to the early second to the Bears. Really good pick here because the Bears were considering picking Nelson in the first round. Instead, they get a James Daniels who, Nelson is amazing. Don't get me wrong. He's a Hall of Fame maybe talent when it's all said and done. But James Daniels is going to be a good starting center or guard in this league. He has that versatility and ability. And James Daniels, I believe he's gonna slot in at center. You're gonna move one of your center, Whitehair, to guard. Then you have Kyle Long at the opposite guard. So you have you're set in the interior of your offensive line. And all those players are pretty young. Kyle Long, maybe around 30 years old, but Whitehair still has a lot of years left. You have James Daniels. You have a good run game. You added Allen Robinson in free agency, and now you add an Anthony Miller in the late second round, who many considered the best slot receiver in this draft. Just a guy that I think is going to be a game changer for Mitchell Trubisky. Just a consistent target that's going to get open and move the chains for Mitchell Trubisky. Now you have Allen Robinson. You have Anthony Miller. You have Trey Burton. You have all these different targets that they brought in free agency that I just think are going to make the difference for this offense. And you have a good defense there. They already added those players in the draft. And then they go out, they get a Javon Wims in the 7th round, who kind of showed that he has some ability. He's a quality add to be maybe a depth receiver, but he's 6'4", 215. Those are pretty good measurables. He consistently comes down with the football. He's a guy that's good in jump ball scenarios. And they got a linebacker in the 4th round, another defensive tackle, defensive end in the 5th round, and another defensive end in the 6th round, just adding to their depth and their pass rush in the 4th and 5th round. And I think the Bears did a really, really good job of just filling holes on their team. They got a guy on the offensive line. They got a receiver, a weapon for Trubisky. They got a linebacker. And I just think the Bears did a really, really quality job this entire offseason of building around their quarterback. And the Bears are going to be one of the sneaky good teams this season. Then you have another winner this offseason, I think, is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, to me, got their centerpiece on offense and their centerpiece on defense. They trade up to get Tremaine Edmonds. They trade up to get Josh Allen. And without even going further than that, that is a great draft. Tremaine Edmonds, to me, was one of the best defensive players in this draft. 6'5", 253. Only 19 years old. Special qualities. The ability to cover is special. The ability to run sideline to sideline at his size is impressive. And I think he's going to instantly have a huge impact on this defense. Then you have Josh Allen, who I felt was the best quarterback in this draft. The ability to pretty much make nothing something, and the ability with his arm and his mobility to just create and take this offense from here to here. And I think Josh Allen, maybe he'll need a little bit of time behind someone for the first year. But as soon as he gets in there, you're going to see a massive difference in this offense. And he could end up he has Hall of Fame talent. If he can put it all together, he can be an absolute stud. So I love the Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds pairing in the first round. Harrison Phillips, this is a steal. To me, in the 3rd round, he was considered maybe a 2nd round pick. He does lack some pass rushing ability, but he's a bull in the run game, and he can definitely, get after it in the run game. And he could replace a guy like Kyle Williams in this defense. They also end up adding, a Wyatt Teller on the offensive line, who could come in and compete for offensive line snaps. An offensive line that was really just absolutely destroyed this offseason. And Wyatt Teller, a guy that kind of had first or second round film in 2016, a little bit of a down year in 2017, but I think that he could turn that around in the pros with some good coaching. And they got some other guys in the draft, strong safety, corner. But I think overall, those first 3 picks really do it. And then you got a Wyatt Teller in the 5th round who could end up being a little bit of a steal towards the end of the draft. So the Bills really, really did have a great draft. And even with those first 2 picks, they could potentially have their star on defense and their star on offense for years to come. So you have the Bills, the Giants, the Bears, and then you have the Denver Broncos. And to me, the Denver Broncos really benefited from a couple of teams ahead of them passing on some guys. I mean, Bradley Chubb to me is an A-plus pick. I love this pick at 5th overall. This is a guy that's the best defensive player in the draft to me. He's going to be a stud. Von Miller said that he's a combination between him and Khalil Mack. And Bradley Chubb, you add him to the opposite side of Von Miller, this is going to be even more nasty than what you saw from DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. You have the potential to have a game-changing pass rush with these 2 players, and it's just going to be hard for opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses to block these guys. Courtland Sutton in the 2nd round, a little bit raw, a little bit of a project. He runs, decently well. He's 6'3", but I think that a lot of people said that he was one of the better receivers in the draft on some people's boards. I wasn't completely sold on him, but I mean, he's going to come in and he's not going to have to be one of the go-to targets. He's going to be a 3 in the NFL to start with, probably, maybe a 4 if another guy like Deshaun Hamilton works out. I really like Deshaun Hamilton. He kind of reminds me a little of Emmanuel Sanders, actually. He could slot in there at the slot position. And he's just a more ready prospect to me than actually a Courtland Sutton. But Courtland Sutton has that higher potential. Both players will just give depth to this receiver core that really desperately needs it. Royce Freeman could come in and instantly be their most talented running back out of Oregon. Isaac Yiadom is going to be a guy that can compete for snaps at corner and just another depth piece after losing Aqib Talib. So this was a really, really good draft from the Broncos' perspective. They also got Josie Jewell, who could probably instantly come in and be a starter as well. So they got probably at least 3 to 4 starters in this draft already that are just going to apply some youth to this team and really help this team out. So the Broncos had an amazing draft. And then you go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my last winner of this draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what they did this offseason, they took their biggest weakness in their pass rush, their defensive line, made it their biggest strength. You have Vita Vea from Washington. He's an athletic guy, kind of like a Haloti Ngata back in the day. The ability to stop the run, but also push the pocket and get after the quarterback. You pair him up with Jarrell McCoy. This is a dangerous duo. You have Vinnie Curry, you have Pierre Paul on the outside, and then you get Ronald Jones to replace Doug Martin or whatever he was giving you last year. Ronald Jones has the qualities to be a special runner, a special home run hitter. He did have some kind of concerns in the testing process, but I think he's going to be a really good back. Then you have MJ Stewart at corner, and maybe my favorite pick, Carlton Davis, I think is going to be a stud at corner, and he's instantly going to start from day one. Instantly. He is a really good man coverage corner. He was one of the better ones in the draft in terms of just his man-to-man skills. He's 6'1", 203, good size. MJ Stewart as well, another corner that you could add in there, and you could just put those guys with Vernon Hargreaves. And I think the Bucs, they addressed their defensive line. They addressed their running back need. They addressed their secondary. They added a couple guys to the offensive line. They got another guy, Whitehead, as a strong safety. And I just think they did a lot here in this draft to address a ton of needs that this team really did need. And you're going to get a lot of starters here. Carlton Davis, MJ Stewart, both might start. You have Ronald Jones, who's going to start. You have Vita Vea, who's going to start. Kappa's another guy on the offensive line that's going to provide depth. Whitehead has the capability to come in and, be surprising, I think. And I just think this team, what they did was just get a lot of guys that can help them immediately and even in the long term as well. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New York Giants, the Buffalo Bills, the Chicago Bears, and the Denver Broncos were my winners for this draft. When we're talking about the losers, I have to start out with a team that I thought went a little bold, but I think that they're going to be rather boom or bust, and that's the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, for me, they got Marcus Davenport. They moved up to 14th overall to make this decision. The thing I don't like about this is he's a boomer bust player in a boomer bust trade. You trade your first round pick next year with your first round pick this year to move up 12 spots to get Marcus Davenport, a guy in a position that you really needed. You needed an athletic guy that can get after the quarterback. I'm not judging that whatsoever, but I just don't know if Marcus Davenport is ready. He's a boomer bust player. He's not the greatest in terms of his technique defensively and getting around tackles. But he is a freak. He has a ton of potential to be a Jadeveon Clowney-like player. He just is not complete and not completely ready yet. So that's why I think it's a little bit of a gamble. Then you have Jaquan Smith in the 3rd round, which I really didn't think they needed a receiver. They have a ton of them on their roster. So I really feel like he's going to be at best their 4th receiver this year. You have Rick Leonard, who I just thought he really is pretty raw for even a 4th round pick. But maybe they were saved by the end of their draft. Will Clapp at center for 7th round. You have Boston Scott, who's kind of like a Darren Sproles type, 5'6", 199, super shifty back. Maybe help you in the return game a little bit. Spell Kamara at times in the 6th round. You added some guys to your secondary as well, but I just feel like the Saints maybe gambled a little bit too heavy in this draft after having such a great draft last year. Then you have the Cleveland Browns, which the Cleveland Browns completely messed up to me. The Cleveland Browns, they had all the opportunity in the world to have a game-changing, franchise-developing draft, and to me, they screwed up. Baker Mayfield, 1st overall. He's a 6-foot quarterback, 1st overall. That does not happen unless you're Michael Vick. You cannot. I mean, it's just a huge gamble. I just felt like Josh Allen was better. I felt like Rosen was better for sure. And I just don't know if Baker Mayfield's going to be that answer. I understand he brings the confidence, but in confidence, he also brings off the field sort of questions with his personality. And I just have too many questions whether this team is looking for the Johnny Manziel that wasn't. And then in Denzel Ward at 4th overall, is this a Justin Gilbert 2.0? Denzel Ward's a good corner, but I didn't really think he was a game-changing defensive player in this draft. He's not a Marshawn Lattimore from last year. He's not a Bradley Chubb. I really thought this should have been Bradley Chubb here at 4th overall. So if I was the Browns, I would have picked different players at both spots. Then you have the 2nd round, Austin Corbett, a little bit of a reach there at center from Nevada. I just really feel like it was a reach to go with him when there was probably better guys on the board. Nick Chubb, running back, sure, that's about the value at that spot. I really feel like Chubb is just a very similar player to Carlos Hyde, though, and they didn't really need that sort of player, and they had a lot more needs. Like, you could have added another corner here. You could have added another safety here. You could have added a number of different positions instead of Nick Chubb at running back in the 2nd round. Chad Thomas, not a bad pick. Antonio Callaway, he does have some explosiveness, but he has a lot of off-the-field concerns, and you add him to a locker room with Josh Gordon. I don't know if that's a great idea. Avery, outside linebacker, super quick, versatile. He flashes. That's a decent pick overall. But I just think the Cleveland Browns, man, I think they just messed up the top of their draft, and it's going to be sorry. I'm going to be sorry if they mess their draft up this year, because this was a franchise-changing draft. And if they really did mess this up and they really were a loser, I hope they prove me wrong, but I just think they picked the wrong guys here. Then we move on to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are a team that I think reached in the 1st round and really didn't address enough of their needs. Rashad Penny, to me, was not the best running back on the board at 27. I understand he has a lot of good measurables and stuff. He has good speed, pretty good size for the position. But you had a lot bigger needs than running back at this spot. You could have went offensive line. You could have went defensive line. You could have went corner. You could have went a number of different positions, maybe safety. So the Seattle Seahawks, tight end, receiver. I mean, there's a number of different positions you could have went at this spot if you're the Seahawks. Instead, they go with a running back that is really, again, not the best running back. I like Michelle better. So, to me, Rashad Penny, a little bit of a gamble here in the 1st round and just a huge reach. Then you have Rasheem Green, who, yeah, he's a solid player, but I don't really know if And he adds the depth to the D-line. I get it. I get that pick. But, I don't know. Where's the offensive line help for Russell Wilson? Where is it? And Rasheem Green isn't exactly a guy that's going to be a pass rusher. He's more of kind of an interior guy. Then you have Shaquem Griffin in the 5th round. I thought was a good pick. Trey Flowers at strong safety, a guy that fits the Seattle ideal DB scheme and everything like that. I thought their best pick was Jamarco Jones in the 5th round. I thought that was good value at offensive tackle. But I just think that they missed on a lot of just places to get value and places to get players that they need at certain positions. And I think it's just a puzzling top of their draft. And to me, they didn't replenish that Sheldon Richardson second. They didn't, replenish the Dwayne Brown trade. So to me, the Seattle Seahawks kind of messed up in the regards to their draft. Then you have this Jacksonville Jaguars. Somebody has to be a loser. This was actually a really good draft for a number of teams, and I felt like the Jaguars weren't necessarily losers, but I felt like they could have done a lot better and a lot different things in this draft. They got Taven Bryan in the 1st round. Pretty good player that fits their scheme, but I just felt like defensive line is not a need for these guys. I mean, you could have went in this direction. The biggest reason why I have the Jaguars as a loser is because of Lamar Jackson. They could have picked Lamar Jackson. I understand you have Blake Bortles and you paid him a lot of money, but Blake Bortles isn't the answer. He's the 70th best quarterback in the NFL. Instead of picking the Taven Bryan defensive lineman, which you really didn't need, you could have went out there, got a game-changing athletic quarterback, and done very similar things that you did with Blake Bortles last season with Lamar Jackson. You already have a great defense. You have good weapons around that player. Why not go with Lamar Jackson? What can you really lose in this instance? The Jacksonville Jaguars don't have a lot of needs. Their biggest need is a franchise quarterback, and Lamar Jackson would have given at least them a chance at that player. But nonetheless, they go with Taven Bryan, which I don't really know is a great pick. DJ Chark. He's kind of, he's a speed threat down the field, but I don't really feel like he is a guy that is going to contribute right away. I think they could have gotten a corner here. They could have went with linebacker here. Instead, they go with a receiver. I think they actually have some pretty good receivers. I know they're under the radar, but DJ Chark is nothing really different from those other guys. Ronnie Harrison, I felt was a decent pick. I think that he can overall replace Robert Church when it's time to go for him. Or Barry Church, sorry, not Robert Church, Barry Church. I feel like he could overall replace Barry Church in that role of an in-box safety when he does retire. And Ronnie Harrison, Alabama, not a bad player. Will Richardson, offensive tackle in the 4th round. He does thrive in pass protection. They did need depth at that spot, so I don't mind that pick whatsoever. But overall, I just felt like they could have went with Lamar Jackson, and I would have totally loved this draft from the Jacksonville Jaguars perspective. Pittsburgh Steelers are my final loser. And the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers are the final loser is because they didn't do enough to improve this team right now. Terrell Edmunds in the 1st round is a reach and a guy that I don't think is going to improve this team instantly. He's not going to start and he's not going to play a lot. Then in the 2nd round, James Washington, he replaces Martavis Bryant, but he's a slot guy. I think he really isn't going to be a guy that's really going to have a huge impact. He might be a good receiver, but really, do the Steelers need another good receiver? They need corners. They need safeties. They need defensive players. This defense has been a huge weakness. The Jaguars ran all over them. The Patriots pass all over them. So they need to improve their defense. And James Washington in the 2nd round, I understand you traded Martavis Bryant, but there's other players and other positions that you needed. Mason Rudolph, dumb pick. I don't like Mason Rudolph. I think he sucks. I think at best he's a system quarterback. And to me, you don't need a Mason Rudolph when you just picked a Josh Dobbs last year in the same round. You could have used this pick on a different position, on a defensive player. Tackle. Don't really get that one. I don't know why you needed an offensive tackle. Free safety. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Jalen Samuels at tight end. Okay, not bad. But you needed defensive players, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive players. I don't understand this from the Steelers' perspective. Maybe you guys can help me out in the comment section below, but those are my 5 winners and my 5 losers from the NFL 2018 draft. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for more NFL. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Peace out.